Aloha, my name is Kainoa Thornton. I'm from Hilo, and I've been dancing for Hālau Kekuhi for 16 years. And that is where I learned how to dye with natural vegetation and things like that. I dyed Pelon fabric using hibiscus flowers. I gathered some of them a couple weeks before, maybe a week before, and I froze the flowers. And then some of the flowers I also picked a day or two before, and those I just left in a bag somewhere. I actually picked the flower and then took the stem and the green part that connects the stem to the petals off. We're only going to use the petals for the actual dye. I also used salt, Hawaiian salt, and some gardening lime, which you can get from any like local store that carries any kind of gardening supplies. I dyed everything in a bikini with a gas stove, and I used like a wooden stirrer that you can buy from like most supply restaurants, supply stores. Once I picked enough flowers, about a full trash bag, I washed the fabric because I wanted to rinse off all of the chemicals that the Pelon comes with. And then I put the bikini on top of my stove, and I filled about halfway with water, and I bring it to a boil. After it's boiling, I add the salt, and the salt helps to bring the pigment out of the flowers, and also helps to open up the fibers and the Pelon to accept the dye, or so I've read. Once all the salt is dissolved, I threw in all of my flowers, and I left it in there for about an hour and a half on a boil, and that helped release all of the pigment from the flowers. After about an hour and a half, the flowers turned gray, so I strained them all out and squeezed out as much of the liquid as I could, and then I threw in the fabric. I put the fabric in wet because that helps it absorb the dye. If you have two pieces like I did, because I was dyeing with another person, we put the two pieces in together because otherwise the first piece will absorb all of the dye before the second piece can even get into the bath. Over the next hour and a half, I kept the water at a simmer because I didn't want to burn the fabric. And then periodically I would stir the fabric or turn it over. I also made sure to push any fabric that had air bubbles down because I didn't want any lighter spots on my fabric. So after about an hour and a half of doing that, I took the bikini off of the heat, and I decided to add my mordant then. I put about a half cup, 3/4 of a cup of the lime powder into a small cup, and I scooped out about 2 cups of the dye bath, and I used that to dilute the powder. I just kept mixing that until it was dissolved, and then to put it into the dye bath, I pull the fabric away from one side so that I can pour the mordant into just the liquid. As I pour it, I'm stirring it to get it worked into the dye bath, and then after all of that's in there, then I mix it all together, just so that you're not putting the mordant directly on the fabric. So after about 10 to 15 minutes of stirring the mordant in, it's consistently throughout the fabric and the dye. I use another garbage bag, and I put that on top of the fabric, and I weigh it down with rocks. That ensures that none of the fabric is going to rise as it sits, because I'm going to leave it in there for about 5 days. Every day I check it and make sure that the rocks haven't moved and that the fabric has risen. I also flip all of the fabric over a couple times, over the 5 days, just to really make sure that it was all evenly dyed. And then at the end of like the 5th day, I think, I took it all out, all the fabric, and I rinsed it all out because I didn't want any of the lime to stay on top. You really want to make sure that you rinse all of the fabric off. And then what came out was a really nice slate gray. I wanted to dye this piece gray because I used it for a pikuahu, which was when a group of our dancers in the Hālau ascended to a new level in their hula journey. I wasn't one of those 10, so, and neither was the other person that was dying with me. So we wanted to choose a color for one that they weren't doing, using a plant that they were not using. So I used hibiscus. This whole process was a really good learning experience for me because this is the first time I've went and like researched a new dye by myself, how to do it, what mordants I should use to come out with what outcome that I wanted to have. And I'll definitely use this knowledge going further into different dyes to get different colors. I found this dye a little bit challenging because I was dyeing Pelon, which is a synthetic fiber, and natural dyes work much better on natural fibers like cotton. So I think that if I had used like a muslin, I would have gotten a stronger color, but for the texture that I wanted in my ahu, we used the Pelon. But I think it'll be interesting to see what it would look like if I used muslin.